First of all, there has to be a distinction between animals for research and animals for testing. They're two very different things. Research is discovery. It's finding out new information about living systems, about disease, how diseases are caused, and what we can do, how we can intervene in those diseases to cure them. Testing, from an environmental perspective, is a very standardized set of animal tests that are done to show the level of toxicity of a chemical. So in the olden days, they would measure out doses of a chemical. Now, these are chemicals that would be sold commercially. So just things that you find on the shelf, cleaning products, anything that could be purchased by the general public. There's an obligation to let people know that these are toxic chemicals, and if you ingest them, then you have to do something about it, call poison control or whatever. So how do we determine what the dose is or the amount is that's going to be toxic for a person? And that was always done in animals. So right from the beginning, when they started testing chemicals in the eyes of rabbits, the Draize test, to see if it was corrosive. And so if it was corrosive in a rabbit's eyes, you would assume that it's going to be corrosive for humans. If you put something on an animal's skin and it caused a rash or it caused some kind of a bruise or something, you could pretty much assume that that would be the case for humans too. There was a test that was done typically that was in animals that was called the LD50. And LD50 means lethal dose 50. So how much of a chemical would kill half of the animals? Pretty crude. So they would, come up with the different doses of chemicals. They'd give it to the animals. And the dose that caused half of the animals to die was called the lethal dose 50, LD50. Well, it was still being done even 20 years ago. And that's changed. That isn't done anymore because it's a pretty crude way of measuring toxicity. So when I first became involved in toxicology, and a lot of toxicology is being done, through companies that are selling chemicals and companies that are testing drugs for safety, because that's also a piece of the toxicity side of things. Those were pretty standard types of tests. And things have really come a long way since then. So when I first started working at Johns Hopkins in 1989, and I became involved with the Center for Alternatives to Animal Testing about a year later, the LD50 was still being discussed and still being used. But people were beginning to see that there's got to be a better way of doing this. So not only is it inhumane to the animals, because some of these things were pretty nasty chemicals, and I didn't know anything about that. I had no idea until I came to Hopkins what was going on in that.
What was your first experience with that? Your first knowledge of that?
Well, it was before I came to Hopkins. I was at Dartmouth, and there were two people in our department who wrote a book on toxicity of chemicals. And I remember, hearing them talk about this book, and it was a really big deal for them. And I heard them talking about some experiments where they were pouring sodium hydroxide or lye down a rabbit's throat to see what happened. And that was part of the toxicity assessment. And I remember being horrified about that because everybody knows lye is corrosive. Why would you have to test it in an animal? And then when I came to Hopkins, and then I realized that it wasn't just things like lye, but there were all of these, this whole other world of chemicals that was being tested that really caused a lot of harm. It made me really think about, yeah, there is a need to find a better way to do this. There's got to be a way to understand how these chemicals are working, so that you can really get a handle on the mechanism of it without just doing these crude tests. And things were starting to happen in the 80s. People were beginning to look at it. Certainly in the area of cosmetic testing, that was an area which was considered to be a low-hanging fruit because, you know, cosmetics are typically not very dangerous anyway, and they're pretty frivolous in the sense of, do you really need to kill an animal to see if having a new type of makeup is going to be safe? And it's an ethical issue. Sure it is. When it gets down to chemicals, it's a little bit different because you see that there are millions of, well, not millions, but there are thousands of chemicals on the market that have never been tested. And because it's practically impossible, you can't go through all the different animal tests that are now prescribed for chemical safety testing and come up with an answer in this century even. It's just ridiculous. And a good example of a chemical that hadn't been tested is the one that was released in the river in West Virginia just a few months ago. And nobody knew anything about that chemical because it had never been tested. So nobody could come up and say, well, these are the toxic effects that you could see. This is the toxic level that you can be exposed to without seeing any danger. Couldn't tell it with that. It was a perfect example. So from a practical sense, as well as from a humane sense, we need to come up with better ways of assessing toxicity of chemicals and what to do about them.